Welcome back. So, in our last session, we got deep into the chemistry of a tablet coat, right? We talked all about the polymers, the plasticizers, the colorants, all those essential ingredients. Well, now we're taking that knowledge and heading straight to the factory floor. We're going to see how it all comes together in the real world. All right, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we're going to walk through the entire industrial film coating process. Step by step from start to finish. Then, and this is the really fun part, we're going to put on our detective hats and dive into troubleshooting. We'll look at what happens when things don't go according to plan and how to spot and fix those common coating problems. Okay, let's kick things off with how it's supposed to work, the ideal process. You've got to understand, industrial film coating isn't just a single spray and pray kind of deal. No. It's a super precise, multi-stage operation. And trust me, every single step we're about to cover has a huge impact on that final, perfect tablet. You can really break the whole journey down into these 6 core steps. It's kind of like following a recipe, you know? Every single step is absolutely critical. You skip one or mess one up, and it's going to show in the final product. So let's take a closer look at each one. First things first, the cores. You've probably heard the saying, you can't build a good house on a bad foundation, right? Well, it's the exact same thing here. The foundation of a great coat is a great core. So before we even think about spraying anything, those tablets have to be mechanically strong. That means they're hard and they have low friability. They don't easily chip or break. They have to be clean, no dust. Why is this so important? Because remember, coating can hide problems, but it can never fix them. Okay, step 2 is all about the coating solution. This is where the chemistry really comes into play. It's an incredibly precise step. You're accurately weighing every single component and mixing them in just the right order. The whole goal is to get a perfectly homogeneous solution or suspension that's all ready to be sprayed. All right, so our cores are ready. Our solution is mixed. Now it's time to load those tablets into the coating equipment like a big perforated pan coater. The goal here is actually pretty simple. We just want to get the tablets tumbling around gently and consistently. That way, every single surface gets exposed, which is exactly what you need for a nice, even coat. And here we are, step 4. Now this is the heart of the entire operation. This is where it all happens. You've got a continuous spray of that coating liquid hitting the tablets. And at the exact same time, you have heated air drying them off. It's this delicate dance, this balancing act between all these different parameters. Inlet air temp, how fast the pan is spinning, the spray rate. Honestly, getting this part right is probably the most challenging, and I'd even say artistic, part of the whole process. So how do we know when we're done? Well, here's a crucial point. We don't just coat until it looks right. Nope, this is all about the science. The spraying and drying process keeps going until the tablets have gained a very specific, pre-calculated amount of weight. And that weight gain is what tells us the coat thickness is just right, which is what determines how the tablet will perform. And finally, the last step. Once we hit that target weight, the spraying stops, and we gently cool the tablets down. For some products, we might add a polishing agent right at the end to give them a really nice gloss. And that's it. The manufacturing process is complete, and we've got our batch of beautifully coated tablets. So we've just seen the perfect run, right? The ideal process where everything goes exactly to plan. But what about the real world? In a busy manufacturing plant, even tiny little deviations in those parameters we just talked about can lead to some pretty big and very noticeable problems. Which brings us to our next topic, the absolutely essential skill of troubleshooting. Let's shift gears now and look at how to identify, understand, and most importantly, correct the most common coating defects you're likely to run into. Okay, let's start with 2 classics, roughness and the one everyone knows, orange peel texture. You know what I'm talking about, right? That bumpy surface. Orange peel is often caused by poor atomization. Basically, the spray isn't breaking up into fine enough droplets. For both of these issues, a common culprit is that the coating solution is just too thick or it's drying way too fast before it can level out on the tablet. The fix? Usually, you gotta tweak the spray itself or adjust your drying conditions. Now, this next one perfectly illustrates what happens when you have over-wetting. If you're spraying too much liquid or you're not drawing it fast enough, the tablets get all tacky. When they stick to the coating pan, we call that picking. But when they stick to each other, especially flat ones, that's called twinning. And yet you end up with a useless double tablet. Sometimes the coating itself can cause problems by obscuring important details. Take bridging, for instance. That's when the coating is too thick or viscous and it completely fills in the debossed logo on the tablet, the company name or the dosage, and boom, it's unreadable. Then there's color variation. If you see tablets with different shades in the same batch, that is a dead giveaway that either your spray pattern is uneven or your coating solution wasn't mixed well enough in the first place. And finally, we get to the really big ones, what you might call catastrophic film failures. Cracking is pretty self-explanatory. It happens when the film is just too brittle and it can't handle the stress. A lot of times that's because there's not enough plasticizer in the formula to give it flexibility. Peeling is even more of a fundamental problem. It means the coat and the cord just don't get along. They're incompatible. It's an adhesion issue where the film literally can't stick to the tablet surface. Look, if there's one key thing to take away from all this troubleshooting, it's this. You can tweak your process parameters all day long, and yes, you can solve a lot of problems that way. But a perfect coating process can never fix a bad tablet core. It all comes back to that foundation. The quality of the core is and always will be paramount. So we've walked the factory floor and we've diagnosed all the common problems. This brings us to a final and I think most important question. How do we move from just reacting to these issues to being proactive designers who prevent them from ever happening in the first place? Well, the answer lies in building quality into the process right from the start. It's a concept we call quality by design, and it's how we ensure that every single tablet that comes off that line is perfect.